Hey, so check it out. One of my referral partners, he's actually my web guy. He had reached out to me yesterday, and he had a buddy of his who's doing a do-it-yourself sale. Oddly enough, if you watched one of my other videos, just the other day, a former client of mine had been reached out to by a private equity company to do a deal on his own. And this guy, I'm not going to use his name. His name's Bob. Let's just say Bob. Bob said, "Hey, can you tell me all the things someone's going to do wrong on a do-it-yourselfer?" And that's so hard. And I was trying to think of a good analogy. Probably the best analogy is like you're sailing a boat, right? When you're leaving a harbor and you let your sail out and you catch the wind and it's a sunny day and there's no squalls, sharks, whales, octopus, I don't know, leaks in your boat. Everything's kosher. But then you hit the horizon, it's nighttime, a squall pops up, something breaks. There's a million different things that can go wrong when you're on a sailboat. And I thought that was a pretty decent analogy as it relates to selling a company. Now, it's a small company, it's a pizza parlor, it tends to be pretty simple. But the bigger you go, the more complicated it becomes. So look, I thought, hey, it would be good if I went through a list of things that are problematic when you're, trying to do a deal on your own. So the first one is treating the price as the only issue. And the price really isn't really everything. As my dad used to say, it's not how much you get, it's how much you keep. The tricky part about that is it's somewhat dictated by what you've done in the past. So if you don't understand how things are treated on your taxes and you make decisions 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in advance that hurts you on your tax and exit, well then there's not much a broker can do other than get with your CPA and refile, and that takes time and that causes problems for the seller and their timeline, or for the buyer and their timeline. And so talk to people who are professionals years in advance, and every year when you meet with your CPA, you should be having exit discussions. And ideally, you should have a valuation done, at least a cocktail napkin one where, hey, this is where I think it's going to land. And you should talk to a broker who can dictate what the market's doing or tell you what the market's doing and tell you what the structure will probably look like. You need to think about terms. You need to think about capital adjustments relative to working capital, to the working capital that's left in the business, to WIP if you're a manufacturing company, work in progress, and then to how it's structured. Is it asset sales? Is it a stock sale? And what are the tax implications for it all? The second thing is showing your hand too early. When do you blink? You're going to get an IO. So what's evolved over the last, for 15 years, I never saw an IOI, an indication of interest. And in the last 5 years, everyone's popping up with indication of interest, which means a letter of intent, which then leads to APA. At the higher end of the market, there's very few buyers who could afford to buy the larger companies. So they've created these kind of stair steps to drag you out on purpose. They tell you it's normal. And it is, because the wolves are in sheep's clothing and they want to bend you over and get what they want from you. So there's a time to tell them what you want. There's a way to tell them what you want without giving away the store. And you lose leverage when you blink and you give things away too early. So you've got to know what the motivation is, and you got to have it communicated. And sometimes you want to communicate that, and sometimes you want to have somebody else communicate that. That's really one of the benefits of the intermediary, is they get to play good cop, bad cop, depending upon the circumstance. And sometimes, if it's a bigger firm, there's a good cop in the deal and there's a bad cop in the deal. Like when we do deals, I usually have a good cop and a bad cop working for the seller, so we can play the sword or play the game depending on who we're talking to on the other side of the equation. We never want to give away leverage. You want to have multiple offers, and trying, like right now I'm in a deal where I've got 4 LOIs and a couple IOIs, and I'm trying to push the buyers to all get to the number that makes the seller happy in structure, terms, and price. That's perfect, right? Because you're making them compete, not you compete. And if you're doing it alone, you usually don't have more than one offer. You usually have one offer because they've approached you directly. And when you show your hand too early, they start giving you a haircut pretty quick. So the next thing that you screw up when you're doing it on your own is how you present the books and records. You don't know how to do that. You don't know the difference generally if you're an operator between accrual and cash basis. You don't want its legitimate add back. You don't know how to calculate work in progress. You have wild expectations sometimes. You don't know how to document and support your add backs, or explain away your personal expenses. Again, early discussion and early conversations, the earlier you do that, the better off. I mean, I'll give you one really cool example. I've seen this a couple times this year alone where the business owners are paying their bills really, really quick. They get a bill, they pay it. Hey, I'm a good customer, right? I'm a good customer to my vendors. And I'm going, dude, that hurts you. And I have to explain to them why that hurts you. And I'm not going to tell you why that hurts you. You probably Google it or chatgpt it. It's probably going to tell you why. But that actually hurts you. Hell, I'll tell you anyways, because where it hurts you is you have to, it says to the buyer that we need to have more working capital. And in the larger deals, you have to give them working capital in the transaction. Next thing, how do you negotiate? Again, I just briefly mentioned, if you're doing it on your own, most of the time you have one offer. You don't have two or three. So how do you leverage people? There's a great movie, A Beautiful Mind, where early in the movie they're in the bar and the creepy scientists are all sitting there drinking beer, and in walk four girls, one blonde, three brunettes, and everybody goes for the blonde. And John Nash says, hey, let's all go for the brunettes, and then we all get a good outcome. The point being that game theory is real. You want to have multiple offers in the deal, and a good broker or a good brokerage team or investment banker can create competition and sizzle it because they have the tools and mechanisms to do that. The next thing, reading an LOI. Like I told you, just earlier this week, I had an LOI, widespread. Hey, we think it's worth between this and this. We want to do an earnout between this and this. And the collars and triggers are not in place. And when you start with spreads, it allows a lot of wiggle room. Not to mention the LOI and the IOI are non-committal. So again, one buyer, they're dictating terms. You have nothing else to negotiate against or use as a foil against the buyer to move them to a better outcome. And you're starting here. The due diligence process is only going to give you a haircut. If you create competition, then you start higher and you get everybody bidding at a higher number. So if a haircut does come, you've got the leverage position to hold them off, to make them think twice about trying to negotiate for better terms. So the next thing is that retrade, which is a function of what we just talked about. If they're the only buyer, they're going to try and retrade you because there's nothing else to compete against. Ignoring deal fatigue. The one this week's a classic. It's in the lawn and landscaping business. If you think for a moment that these buyers don't know what your season looks like, that you're about to enter summer season, your cash flows are about to get tighter, the offers came at a specific time. The closing date's 30 days before season starts. They know that your cash flows and your pain, your point of pain is going to change dramatically come July, August. It's going to get harder and hotter and more difficult in that particular industry, and you're going to be willing to give away concessions just to get out of it. Then not vetting the buyer properly. Are they a pledge fund? Are they not a pledge fund? Do they have the money or do they not? Do you have a PFS? Did the broker, or do you know how to even verify that these people are real and that they have the money? The emotional decision making. You get tied up in this is my baby, and you don't know how to look at your baby and go, my baby's ugly, and know what hill to die on and what not hill to die on. The other thing I think gets in the way, and this is probably the last one, you fail to plan for what's going to happen afterwards. Again, there's a recurring theme here. The earlier you start exit planning, 4, 5, 6 years in advance, the better off you will be. So there's a litany of other things that can go wrong. Again, the sailing analogy, you could rip a sail, you could lose a rudder, you could get hit by a whale, or tornado can come up. Think the perfect storm. All these things can occur. But the point is, you got to have people around you who have been through those things and navigated them so that they know what's normal, what's not normal, and then get you the best outcome. Have a good one.